Hey, welcome to Thinking Out Loud
Hi.
live. So this show is just something we do to discuss our thoughts on mostly mental health and entrepreneurship, basically based on our experience. This episode is made possible by Start Day One, which is a nonprofit foundation for mental health and suicide prevention, where we have a more active approach in helping people. We've seen that most organizations are very reactive. They kind of wait for mental health issues or suicidal tendencies. And from our experience, it's actually more effective when we reach out before they get there. And so we've been doing a lot of these videos, especially during the pandemic, just to make sure that we're being able to reach out to people that might need it because most people don't really reach out. It's kind of like when people are gaining weight, they don't exactly start exercising when they're in shape. They usually kind of wait. And it's the same thing with mental health. You feel like you don't need to exercise, or some people think I don't really need any help. So we have actually a special guest today, and Bryson will introduce her.
So today we have Dai Manuel, and he is coming to us from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, way far, like Alaska.
Yeah.
So anyway, he is an award-winning author, an executive performance coach. He's a certified lifestyle mentor. He helps empower people to lead a fun-filled life through education, encouragement, and community. So
when you meet him, he looks fun.
Yeah, he does. He seems really cool. So when you, so anyway, welcome. Let's welcome Dai Manuel.
Oh, hey, how's it going? I feel like I should be wearing a parka. You guys made it sound like I'm out in the boonies, way up north. Vancouver, we're only 2 hours north. Dude, we're 2 hours north of Seattle. 2 hours north of Seattle. So it's okay. It's okay. I'm not here to do a geography lesson, but come on.
I mean, for us, that's so far for us. That's so way polar opposite from where we are. We're on the, on the ocean on the East Coast, and you're so far away.
This is true. It is. We're coast to coast, literally right now with this conversation. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So I know we did a quick intro for you, but can you just let the audience know kind of where you've been,
your past?
Yeah, give us your story. Take your time, and then let us know where you're at now, how you got involved in mental health and stuff, and then what you're trying to achieve, any kind of future project, things like that.
Holy smokes. This is like, what do I do when I'm given all this opportunities? This is wonderful. Well, first of all, my name, a lot of people see the spelling and they're like, how do I say that? And it is pronounced Dai, D-A-I, which is a Welsh name for David. And my last name is Portuguese, Manuel. So Dai Manuel, when my parents gave it to me, I really had no say in the matter. I kind of thought it was weird growing up with that name. But then this thing called Google came about and search engine optimization. And now I actually love my name because it's really easy to find. And so I appreciate you having my Instagram handle and my website up there. And thank you both for that. But if you type my name into any social platform, you'll find me. I'm like the only guy with this name, from what I can tell. Unless you see somebody in some foreign country with the same name, it's chances are just someone trying to rip off my account. But that being said, it's an honor to be here. I love what you guys are doing. And this mental health conversation specifically is one that resonates very close to my heart. And just because, yes, I'm 43 years young. I have 2 teenage daughters. They're 15 and 17 now. Little people, I kind of remind myself they're little people. They talk back to me. They express their opinions. And my 17-year-old, she is teaching me new things every day. She is quite the activist, and especially with all the stuff that's been happening globally, specifically in North America as of late, with the George Floyd murders and whatnot. We've been very much involved with that and participating in marches, and she's taken me out to big events to show our support, to be there to support the communities. So that's been a big eye opener for me as well, because, I'm 43 years and I've lived life a certain way and not even realizing what my position has been, growing up. And, but I sort of going off on a tangent here, but you asked a question about me, and I've been in the health and wellness space for 25 years as a career. But I didn't come to fitness or healthy living naturally. I was morbidly obese as a teenager. And just to put this into context, my BMI was over 40. I was very large, and it didn't happen by accident. It's not like, oh, hey, I woke up one day and, I was really overweight. No, it was a gradual thing that happened over about a 5-year period. And I got to my largest at 14, very depressed, very withdrawn. Typically all the stigmas that we would attach to someone in that state of unhealth, I was living. That was just my life. And suicidal tendencies, some thoughts, I created a lot of pain for myself. And it was hard. Life was hard. Everything was hard. I mean, just even, walking up a flight of stairs was really hard. And it was like walking up Everest every day, even going to school, because my homeroom was on the 3rd floor of the school. So it was like, oh my goodness, like, could it be any worse? Long and short of it all, I went through a personal transformation, and that just involved me starting to choose to do things a little bit differently. Rather than being a victim, I said, okay, well, what do I have to do to turn this around and be a hero in my own life? How do I champion my own life, period? And I went to the library. This is sort of, as I joke, but I'm older than Google, I tell my kids. And I went to a thing called the library to get books out on how to live better, how to work out, how to move my body with purpose, how to eat to thrive, rather than just simply put food in my mouth without knowing what it's actually doing. And took about 2 years. And I went through that transformation. And after going through that process, I started having people take note of me. And what I mean by that is I mean, you guys can attest to this. You meet amazing people in your life. You have these fantastic conversations where we're constantly being inspired, right? We're literally inspired by people and the actions they're making, and just how they're taking a stand for what they believe in. And when we see people go through big changes or overcome big obstacles, to come out on the other side victorious, there's something that attracts us to that. And it also instills in us belief, that we could do that too. And what happened was, here at age 17, almost 18, I had people coming to me that had saw me at my largest, now seeing me as this fit guy that's, literally completely done a 180. And they started asking me questions. They were like, hey, do you think you could help me get a little bit healthier? Could I lose some fat? Can you talk a bit about what I should be eating? These were kind of questions, like, people never paid attention to me. And all of a sudden, people actually cared what I was saying. They were asking questions, and not simply just to fill the air so they could start talking, but they really cared about what I had to say. And this is the first time in my life that I had a taste for coaching and mentorship. But on the flip side, rather than being the one receiving, I had the opportunity to now give. And oh my goodness, it was just such a rewarding feeling. And that's what gave me the coaching bug. And literally from 18 to now, I've been coaching, mentoring, helping individuals and organizations in many different capacities, all in the space of just trying to help people live a happier, healthier life. And that's really it, me in a nutshell. And I've done lots of things in between 18 to 43, but the bottom line, that common theme of just helping people, that's been consistent all the way through.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Interesting story.
Yeah, that's cool. You know what I like on your story is because I compare physical health a lot with mental health. Like even before, like I mentioned this, right? Like people kind of don't people kind of wait. The way they treat mental health is like this, right? Call me when you're 500 pounds. One of the way they say, like, hey, call me when you're suicidal, like what most organizations do, right? Call when you're suicidal. That's when you need help. Call me when you're depressed. That's when you need help. But imagine people going up to you, waiting, and you tell them like, oh, no. When you're 500 pounds, then talk to me. But you're only kind of a little overweight right now.
You're only like 350, so you're good.
And so that's something I always relate to with people, for them to realize, like, no, this is an ongoing thing. Not only do you need to start now, just like even with you in shape, the reason you stay in shape is you have to keep exercising. Like that's the way it is. Same thing with your positive mindset, right? You don't just all of a sudden, oh, looks like I'm positive forever. I guess I can think as negative as hell now. And so I kind of try to relate to people like, this is the way it works. And I always try to compare it so they can understand, right? When you're obese, like that's the way they treat mental health too. They talk about the result rather than the cause.
Right.
So when you are obese, it's they use the same thing, right? Except let me put it this way. In mental health, they blame the result rather than the cause. What I mean is people go, oh, looks like Dai, you have depression. So I guess you're going to be depressed. And it doesn't make any sense because you're just talking about the result. You're not talking about the cause. And so people are taking drugs on being just because they have depression, but they're not talking about why they're in depression. Because I always tell people, it's because of your perspective that kind of gets you depressed. That's why you're in depression. You don't catch depression all of a sudden like, oh man, damn it, got caught again. I'm depressed for 4 months now. Like, son of a. It's kind of like someone going to when you were younger and just going, oh, you're obese. Well, looks like you need these pills. Like that didn't fix the problem at all. All you said was I'm obese. That's all you did. You didn't say why you're obese. You didn't say what I need to do. You didn't say what's causing it. Instead, if they said like, oh man, well, what are you eating? Like, are you doing any activities? Like, what's causing you to be obese? So obesity, every time it's just a noun, right? That the results are always pretty much nouns. The cause is almost always a verb. Always. People with problems, right? Oh, it's my dad. Everyone has dads. Like, that's not it.
Some are good, some are bad.
Yeah, what's your dad doing? I'm curious, what was your perspective? Because I always, every time I've talked to people, it seems to be the perspective that changes. While you are obese, like what was your perspective that got you so depressed? And
or what led you to become obese?
Yeah, like what was kind of
was
going
there
through your
trauma
mind?
an earlier age that happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I didn't mean to skim over that, but I was trying to be, I'll give you more of an abbreviated story rather than taking too long to talk about it. But to be honest, my parents separated and divorced before I was even 10. I guess it was around 9 when they announced it to my brother and I. And, my mom and dad together financially were really stable, but when they separated, obviously there's 2 households, there's 2 vehicles. I mean, just everything doubles up. And so my mom, was very career focused. So was my dad. He was, we were fine. Please don't take that out of context. We were perfectly fine, but we had to start looking at things a bit differently. But the biggest thing that I noticed was that I had a lot more time alone. Especially when I hit 10, now I'm of the age where I can be left home alone. I can come home after school. There's a few hours before any parents are back. And, when you're left to your own vices, you learn to cope with things if you don't have other means of coping with them. And I found solace in food and video games and movies, right? So I had a very passive lifestyle. I wasn't moving my body much other than to walk to school and home and, the occasional phys ed class if I went. And so I played video games, watched movies, and ate a lot of food, and a lot of it was healthy food. It was just volume. And I learned how food made me feel good in the moment. That those little dopamine receptors were firing and they were feeling good and just certain endorphins. So I learned a habit of self-medicating with food. And so that was the habit that I was instilled with. And then, just you repeat that day after day after day, year after year after year, and it has a negative compounding effect. But the nice thing is on the flip side, positive compounding also happens many ways. And that's why when we make a change and we continue doing the things that we know will help bring about the big positive changes, these micro decisions or micro commitments, they turn into big shifts, big pivots for us. But it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, right? And so with that, and if I really had to get down to it, it was me just wanting to be wanted. Especially my motivation when I made the mental shift saying, you know what, enough's enough. I'm more afraid of living a life of not making any changes than I was of a life that involved making a change right now. And even though that change scared me, it intimidated me. I was like, I went from 0 to trying to work out, that is a big shift, not knowing at all what to do or how to do it. And, but that was okay. I leaned into that fear and It was very uncomfortable, but I started to see results. And for me, it was just mountain biking. And I just started cycling, and riding my mountain bike down the street, up the hills, I lived just on the edge of the country. So I had lots of roads to go and ride. And I just started doing that and then educating myself. And what's really interesting is when you start doing things, especially in the self-care space, because you guys can probably relate to this. I have yet to find a career where they say, Dai, we're going to pay you to look after yourself. We're going to pay you lots of money to practice daily self-care. What do you think about that? Because if there's a job, well, if someone's listening to this and they have a position to fill, I'm here. Okay. So if that's the case, which it is, who's responsible for looking after ourselves? Well, obviously it's the person looking back in the mirror, and yet we are very quick to deflect and to use excuses. And I say this, and I'm not trying to point fingers, because I know you point one, there's three pointing back, right? I get that, because I've been through this. I still go through it. But it's not a process that just stops one day because you decide to make it stop. It's there still, but we learn to work through it. We learn how to start making decisions that does affect us very quickly. How do you get up in the morning? I always like to ask people. I have this process, and you guys might get a little laugh out of this, but for anyone that's listening to this, there's just one thing I want you to try for a week straight, and that's getting out of bed. Okay. But when you get out of bed, I want you to pretend you got the IOC. So you got the International Olympic Committee in your bedroom, and they are watching you get out of bed. Okay. They are there. They're judging. They've got their scorecards. They're going to judge how you stick the landing when you get out of bed. When you get out of bed, are you getting out of bed like a champion? Because it's the very first thing you do in the morning. It sets the tone instantly. And we know moving our bodies creates a certain energy. It just does. It's amazing. Just walking every day. If you just get out and you just start walking, like most of my clients, when they hire me to help them, especially my morbidly obese clients, I'm like, I get it. I know how you're feeling. I'm like, don't even worry about nutrition. I just want you to walk a little bit every day. Like, what? That's it? You just want me to walk? I'm like, yeah,
exactly.
And are you feeling bad that you have to pay me to do that now? No, but obviously that's the start of the journey. It's just getting them moving a little bit, because moving begets more moving. And body in motion likes to stay in motion. And I'm not going to go back to physics class, but we have certain principles. But it's making the choice to start. And that can sometimes be the hardest and most intimidating decision that any of us can make. And
because you're being accountable for yourself.
That's actually, I didn't really get into it earlier, and that's the reason why we call it Start Day One. So the idea, the mission, right, is to change people's perspectives and to stop dreaming of one day to starting day one. Day one means there's a day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, kind of thing, because people are so overwhelmed, especially when you're obese, right? Like, I have so much to lose. And so they get overwhelmed, like, how much work is that going to be? And they think of the whole thing. It's like, no, just start day one. I just walk around the block. That's all I'm saying. Alcoholic, dude, I'm not saying you have to quit tomorrow. What I'm saying, hey, one less beer, man. That cigarette, hey, one less cigarette tomorrow. That's all I'm saying, because until you start, nothing happens, right? It's all about the decision. So my experience, what I've seen, right, is it all starts with that sense of purpose. And then your perspective has to match that purpose. If you have a negative perspective, I've learned that all your decisions will follow that perspective. It's like you did. You're just like, oh, my life, when your mom and dad, and your perspective is like, whatever, until you actually said you had a mental shift. Your perspective actually changed. It went, what am I doing? Like, you know what? I'm done with video games. I'm done with this. Because like you mentioned earlier, inspiration and motivation is fucking everywhere. Like everyone sees this on Facebook, Instagram, Nike Just Do It commercials. I mean, it is everywhere. So if that's the case, and actually I've also heard from someone from the UK, one of our previous guests, he said that there is so much more motivational and inspirational kind of connections that we can find online, yet suicide rates has actually increased. What the hell is that about? So what I've learned is this. All the motivational quotes and inspirational stories that you're going to see out there are all meaningless unless you make a decision about something. Until you make a decision, nothing's going to happen. These are people that read about wanting to exercise, talking about, oh, this is the best diet. But it's like, but until you change until you make a decision, nothing's going to change. You have to change something, right? For something to change. Like you have to. And I've actually learned, like talking to so many people, like almost everyone's insane. They complain about things they do nothing about. Oh man, my job is this and this. Same job, same as last 5 years, the one you've been complaining about for the past 5 years. Same, like, oh man, my girlfriend this, that. Same girlfriend. You didn't have the talk, huh? Nothing? All right. Well, it's gonna stay the same. And that's what I've learned. It's like people are kind of they don't understand. It's just about the choice. And another thing we've learned is like when you're in a bad state of mind, I'm sure when you're in just that bad, like negative perspective, right? We tend to love excuses and we hate accountability. Like it's never a fucking fault. Like no, it's hard. She makes me depressed. I'm gonna eat, And no one wants to take accountability. And I learned this because I was talking to someone, and he was telling me I was talking about my brand, and I said it all starts with a decision. And he goes, "Yeah, but it's not that easy." And I said, "I never said it was easy, but that's where it starts." He goes, "Yeah, but I'm in rehab now, and I'm telling you this, blah 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 blah." And I said, "Yeah, it doesn't matter. It still starts with a decision." And he goes, "Yeah, but," I'm like, "All right, man, listen. It starts with a decision. I don't know why you can't do that. Tell me why you can't do that." And I backed up, and he was just like, he just stood there, just thinking, because he's going through his database of excuses. But I told him, "Don't say yeah, but." He almost did. He goes, "Yeah, but," and he was just, I'm like, no. But because I just said that, he stopped himself, and he was just standing there for like a couple of minutes,
Just trying to make up excuses.
just trying to look, and then he just goes, "You're right. You're right." I go, "I know. You're welcome." Like you're in rehab and you haven't even decided to get better. And this happens a lot. People just go, but didn't decide. Like
or they go because they're forced to by courts or family or whatever.
Right.
And that's why they always wind up back in rehab again, because they're being forced to go. They didn't decide that they want to go.
They didn't get the mental shift that you got. The perspective never changed. People that are going to rehab, it's like, because like you got to look for the cause. Is it because you haven't forgiven your dad? Is it because you lost someone you never let go? You have to figure that out. But people just go. Like there's no mental shift. There was no perspective change.
I'm sure no one was going to actually motivate you when you were a child to go and mountain bike. Like, come on, go mountain bike. Come on, go, put the Doritos down, let's go.
Yeah.
And you probably weren't going to go. You had to make that decision on your own. You had to be accountable for your own self.
Right. And what's cool, so with people that are watching, what makes you so fucking powerful is because you having gone through it, right? So you become this inspirational story. Like, how the hell does this dude have abs? Like, wait, he was what? Obese? Like, what do you mean he was obese? You can't even understand that. But what I've learned, so it's a sense of purpose, and then it's perspective. Once you change someone's perspective, because the only reason you need inspiration is to change your perspective. When they see you, they're going to go, holy shit, if he can do it, maybe I can do it too. Or their perspective all of a sudden shifts, and all of a sudden it goes like that. But once that's what motivation is for, inspiration, all that stuff, right? And then it becomes the power of decision. Now you have to decide to do it, because there's the only way you're going to have the pleasure. And the thing is, they have to understand, like, you have to embrace the pain through the process, man, or you'll never get the pleasure. Like, it's going to suck. It's going to suck. What was your mental shift? Like, was there something that kind of hit you and said, like, and it made you kind of change? Or was it just like, what was it? It's got to be like something, or
every time where I've run into a situation where I felt I was at a crossroads, it probably, I feel very much like it was a black and white situation. It's like either this or that. Like it felt like I got to a conditional period where I was either going to accept who I was and how I was
Right.
and learn to be okay with that,
Right.
or I was going to make a change. Because the third option was I could just end it, and to be honest, that scared me a lot. Like that, just the finality, and I'm still intimidated by the idea of death. I still finally find myself struggling with just that concept, and so it just became very apparent there was two choices. And for me, though, in that situation, that morning at my dad's place, getting out of the shower, and I've shared this story before, and I'll give you a shortened version, but I was having a shower at my father's place, and because my parents obviously had two separate residences, and we were at my dad's usually every other weekend, and this one weekend we had somewhere to go. I think we were going bowling. I don't really remember, but he had something planned for my brother and I, and so I would normally do the Saturday morning shower, and my trick though, for bathing, and especially in showers in a bathroom, I would stay in the shower for an extra long time because it would fog up the mirror. So at the very least, when I would get out of the shower and dry myself off, I would not have to see myself.
Wow.
Like this is what's really proves this point of just my own self-opinion, and that low self-opinion was there's very few photos. There's about a 3-year period of my life from about age 13 to almost 15. There's like no photos of me. There's like 2 or 3. Like you can't find anything. And I'm just very grateful I didn't live in a time like today where everyone's got an amazing camera in their pocket, plus like social media. I couldn't even imagine being how I was and having to live with all this messaging, because I see how my kids are navigating it. It's a constant concern. And so here I was, this morning getting out of the shower because my dad was like, you guys got to hurry. We got to go. So it was a quick rinse, and I got out, and I don't remember the last time I did the locked in stare at myself in the mirror, and then doing the up and down glance, and looking all the way down and then all the way up. And I just broke down, like just uncontrollable sobbing, and just feeling so ashamed and disliking who was looking back at me. Like I really felt like I hate myself. And it was in that moment where you start to rationalize things. It's like, okay, well, is this how I'm going to be for the rest of my life? Like these are questions that were going in my mind. And I'm like, okay, well, if this is like, can I handle this? Do I like this? And then I just started to think, it's like, well, I know there's changes. I know I can make some changes. I know things can be different, but I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it will work. You started already, you were talking about this before, there's this perspective, but also if we don't have any past history of success, of achieving something successfully, of actually winning at something, at getting the result that we started to pursue, right? It'd be very hard to gain confidence in oneself if you don't have any positive traction. And at that point in my life, I didn't have any positive traction. So I had no point of reference. Right. So there is a little bit of a leap of faith. And this is where we look for inspiration from outside of ourselves, or that external motivator, right? We look for stories of others who have overcome similar challenges and have come out on the other side victorious, have literally fulfilled the change that they wanted to make and live. And so I started thinking about that. And to be perfectly honest, and this is where I see every time I see someone coming to a point in their life where they feel called to have a massive change, they cannot live in how they're living in the moment right now. So they know they need to make a change. There's something there that they feel called to change. And every time when I think about that in my own life, like giving up alcohol 10 years ago, there's a story there too. Finding out I was diagnosed almost 7 years ago with a chronic autoimmune disease, and I'm thinking about all these challenges that seem to just keep popping up. And the thing is, what happens is you get to this crossroad, and you can go left or right. Both are scary, but I tend to go with the one that's less scary, and for me, the idea of change is actually less scary than the idea of staying on the path that I'm already on. And I think when people really get down to it and start to rationalize their fear, try to be a stoic philosopher and rationalize it all away, like it literally comes down to that point. It's like, I'm more afraid of not changing than I am of changing. So I guess it's time to make a change. And that's it, and sure, you make the choice, but now you got to start doing something. and we're left thinking, what do I do? You know?
Yeah, right.
And that's where I was. I was definitely at that point. And I
Yeah.
have to give it up to my parents, because at that point I came to them asking for support, and they were like, oh yeah. Because every time before that, as you had mentioned, you know, they'd try to encourage me to do things in the past, you know, paying for classes or even offering up a trainer or a nutritionist, dietitian. Like, just they wanted to see me be happier. And but I didn't want it. And
Yeah, you're right.
and so that was it, you know, and then it's just like every day it's like making that choice again. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. Why? Because I want to live these changes. I want to feel better. I want to be
Yeah.
happier. I believe that I deserve that, you
Right.
know,
So
and
become a
and away
change
you go.
champion.
Yeah.
Someone just wrote,
And-
become a change champion.
And
That's right. Yeah, I love that, change champion. And you know what's really interesting is if we think back to Buddha, right? Like, think about Buddha, and 2,500 some odd years ago, you know, he had a quip, a little quote, you know, and it was, "This too shall pass."
Yeah.
And a lot of people believe that concept of "this too shall pass," it implies change, and that everything's always
Right.
changing. There's that nothing stays the same, right? And if
Right.
we believe that things are staying the same, that creates suffering, because it creates loss, it creates fear, it creates a whole pile of other emotions. But even when you say "this too shall pass," you have to remember even the good times, right?
Mhm.
When we're experiencing happiness, this too shall pass. So it's not just a negative, even though we think of it from a negative standpoint most of the
Right.
time. That's just our default,
Depends on
right?
your perspective at the time.
Yes.
When you have a negative, that's what you'll see.
Yes. But this too shall pass also means the present moment, like always about the present moment. Right now, this thing I'm experiencing right now will pass. So if I'm extremely happy, it's my birthday, I'm having a birthday party, it's like all my friends are there, it's a great time. I never want this to end. Well, it will end. So
Yeah.
just appreciate it for right now, for what it is. And when you start to adopt a lifestyle that embraces change,
Yeah.
you don't become a prisoner of it any longer. You
Right.
start to embrace it, and you start to appreciate what's going on right now. And you start to look at your decisions right now and the impact they can make. And it's amazing once you go through that process, but it's not simple.
Yeah. What's
It's not
funny,
easy, but it's worth
when
it,
you say
right?
that, the biggest thing I take away from the "this too shall pass" is because it's because the reason life is so precious is because it is limited.
Mhm.
And the whole "this too shall pass," it's because it's you're getting more scarce and scarce and scarce. That's why as you get older, you appreciate life even more, because you're like, oh my God, I'm like 50, 60, and you know, like I'm getting less and less. When you're a kid, you have the entire, you know, life in front of you still. So it's that whole idea. That's why I tell people it's actually human nature to take life for granted. And it's just really the law of supply and demand. There's a reason it's called the law of supply and demand. The less of something, the more value and demand, right? That's always happens. For a little kid, you know how summers feel like the whole thing is it's so long. Summers were so long when you're a kid. Well, that's
Right.
because you're 10 years old. The summer, the percentage of the summer when you're 10 is this big. The summer when you get older becomes so small compared to your entire life that summers become quick. It's like, summer's gone already?
Because
What
they're
happened?
limited. There's how many you have left in your life.
Right. So your percentage of the summer based on your life gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So time feels like it's going faster and faster. Like, holy shit, how did my kids become a graduate of high school? Whoa, wait a minute.
Mhm.
Wait a minute. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And that's what I take from that. It's because like people ought to have to understand, like, hey, it's actually what makes life precious. Like, you have to understand that it's going to end. And that's why they always have these movies about the immortals being so jealous of the mortals, like, because you appreciate life more. You look at, you want to taste the world because you know you're going to be gone. And the gods and stuff are going like, wish I could have that feeling because I'm here forever. So it's like, it's the same thing. Imagine if your birthday was for a year. It's like, you're not gonna go like, yo, it's my birthday, come hang out. Yeah, it was your birthday a month ago, 3 months. Like, I'm over it, man. So imagine celebrating Christmas every freaking month. It's gonna get old. You're gonna be like, all right, first I'm broke, so you know, Christmas every year is not good. I mean, every month isn't gonna work. And you know, thank you for sharing your story. You know, with the bathroom and all that stuff. I mean, at least now you're like, Now you want to
Well,
see, right?
it's different, right? Like, well, and to be honest, you hit this point, and you address this actually. You know, Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about it. He calls it the shift, and I think he's got a book about it, and there's also a movie. It's not really a documentary, but it feels like a documentary, and it's really interesting. But as we sort of approach 40s and beyond, he calls this period a shift, and what happens is, and the way I like to explain it is envision a clock on the wall, and when you're born, it just counts up, but you get to your 40s, it starts counting down, and you start to realize that
It's
time
scarcity.
is a bit more limited. And
Yeah.
because if you go off the statistics, and of course there's always outliers, but when you look at the averages, the typical human being, a male, lives barely to 80 years old. Women live a couple years longer, but
Yeah.
it's, if I'm thinking that I'm just going to live to be the average age, well, I'm past the halfway mark. And it's just really interesting, because then it's like,
It's scary.
it's counting down, right?
The
Like
one
you do
thing
start
that
to treat things differently. Yeah.
the one thing with this story, this concept at least,
Mhm.
it was actually like a comedy thing with Eddie Murphy in it. I don't know if you ever
Mm.
saw it. I never even saw the whole movie, but I just saw this one part, and it just kind of slaps you. He
Mm.
said the average person, I don't know what now, I guess like 75, 70, average, right? Around there?
What, death to die?
I
Yeah.
think it's like 78 for men, and
Okay.
like
Almost
79 and change for women. It's something like that. There's different numbers
Yeah.
out there, but whatever.
So
Either way, we'll say 80.
78. So it's like, he's like 78, and he's just like, well, how old are you now? So if you're 40, that means you only have how many
38.
left?
Yeah.
38 summers left. And you're probably not going to go to summer at the very, very end either. So you have like 30 summers left. That's it.
Mhm.
That is a nice slap, because you're like, whoa,
Mhm.
I only have 30 summers. That's it. And it's all over. Like that's when you're going to take your vacations. You have 30 attempts. 29. You still didn't go to Italy, huh? Boom. Oh, you forgot Bali? Ah, shit. I mean, you're getting it in, but that was something that really just makes it obvious to you, like how scarce it is. And you really have to think about, I mean, you almost just it makes time more precious, right?
Mhm.
And these are things that changes your perspective. When you feel like, oh, I'm bored, it's like, bored, dude, what are you doing with that time? Like, are you crazy?
Mhm.
Like this whole pandemic. And I understand just sometimes you don't have to always be like hustle, go, go, go. You got to appreciate life for everything that it is. It's not like don't sleep, work on your businesses, and you can rest later. It's like, that's insane. No, I want to enjoy also now and later. It's really a harmony of things.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone that's watching, most people don't really know. I lost my brother to suicide.
Mhm.
So you sharing your story is big. That's actually how I learned about the whole perspective. Most people that are, have mental health issues or get depressed and stuff like that, it's not really their situation. It's actually their perspective that's off. That's why rock stars commit suicide while the homeless are trying to stay alive. Like, that doesn't make sense, right? Like, you would think it'd be reversed, but what happened? It's because their perspective is so shot, and they don't see a different future whatsoever. Like, they just think it's this. But the thing is, even in the present future, as long as you maintain, you'll be fine. But what's funny is this, something I just we just kind of became aware of, right? A lot of people are always surprised, like, oh my God, yeah, Robin Williams, whew, that's crazy. I can't believe he committed suicide. Or another actor or a rock star is like, oh, when they hear like drug overdose, people don't understand, like, that's just slow suicide. Like, if anyone doesn't know that, you got to know that. Alcoholism, all these things are just slow suicide. When you have a negative perspective, that is what evolves to becoming suicidal tendencies until you make a change. Something. Everything in between is really anxiety, depression, alcoholism, drug abuse. It's all one line leading to the same thing.
Right.
Suicide. Always does. Some of them just never reach there, right? And so that's where I really learned that it's all about your perspective. And until you change that, it's really going to just keep on, you're just going to keep following the same route. and it just doesn't change. And that's why the sense of purpose is necessary. Because when people say, oh, I'm just lost, it's like, well, where are you trying to go? Like, if you don't know that, it's like, so actually the first thing I usually ask when they feel lost, I go, so when you're driving in a car and you get lost, do you put it in park, like wherever you are? Like, is that what you do? Because that's what you're telling me right now. That's what you're doing. Like, that's weird, right? So they're like, oh, no. Yeah. So what do? You look at your GPS, a map, something. They don't even know what maps are. But anyway, they look at the GPS,
road atlas,
and it's going to say, reroute. Reroute. You went the wrong way, but that doesn't mean you can't get to your destination anymore. But you have to know where the hell that is. If you don't know where that is, you're always going to be lost until you have a destination. It doesn't matter what kind of GPS you have or whatever. But in any case, when you do find out and then you go, ah, shit, it added 3 more hours. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit longer because you took a wrong turn. It's going to take longer to get there. I get it. But just reverse, back up, reroute, and then you get back on there. No matter what, though, and one thing my brother kind of told me, every road is connected. And there's always a way to get there. There's always a way to get there. It's just that, do you have to back up, or do you just, maybe sometimes you find a shortcut. But either way, you have to figure that out, or else you're always going to be lost. And that's just the way it is. And people kind of don't understand, like, people that are struggling and stuff like that, they don't understand that it's actually a necessary part of life to be able to appreciate it. And this is what I mean. We've always referred to like movies. Actually, we were just talking about this earlier today because we were discussing something about the negative experiences that we have, right? What if you deleted it? Well, imagine a movie, any movie. I don't know, somehow I always go to Titanic. I don't know why. But you see that movie, right? Imagine taking out all the bad parts. Without the struggle, conflict, challenges, that's not a movie anymore. It's a documentary now. Not only that, it no longer has become interesting at all. You wouldn't even watch it. Wait, so let me get this straight. This chick and this dude got on a Titanic, got rich. That's it.
Boat didn't sink. We're good. Right. Everyone's happy.
And I've told people that really experience a lot of negative things in their life. Like I remember this one lady, we were talking, and they just recently lost their baby and stuff like that. And it's like, oh man, that's really tough. And this thing, that I just kind of changed his perspective. I'm like, wow, that's amazing, man. Like, you're so inspiring. Like, so I told him a whole movie thing. I'm like, your movie is awesome right now. That is what makes your movie very interesting. Like, look at Dai over here. Like, holy crap, he went through this and that, and look what he's doing now. And then the thing is, you're always going to have these constant challenges, because that's what makes your life even more interesting. The Dai Manuel movie is fucking sick, right? Like, because you went through so many struggles and challenges. If you erase all that, hey, Dai, been in shape forever, huh? Really. So nothing. And I wish I had, the knowledge that I have now, with my brother and stuff. And it really taught me, like, that you could just change, like, it was just your perspective that we really need to change. Every time we talk to people like yourself, there's always that one part. Oh, and then I finally realized either they found God, or it always went down to, like, they finally changed their perspective, almost always. And the thing is, we never help anyone. We help guide people so they can help themselves, like, because it has to come from them, right? Like, you don't force people to go work out.
That's what I was actually going to ask you, because what do you have any what are your tools that you use or methods that you use when you're doing what you do?
Yeah.
I like to empower people to ask themselves questions, and
Nice.
Because when you run into a situation where you're faced with decisions, or at least to make a decision, there's a series of questions that you can always ask yourself. And the first one being is, can I do this? Like question number one, like if there's a change that you want to make, and we'll use weight loss, okay? Right? As I like to say, weight release. Like when you lose something, you want to find it again. Like losing your keys, very frustrating. You just subconsciously we hate to lose things. We don't because losses we equate to being bad. So let's call it releasing. We're giving ourselves permission to just say bye bye, weight, bye bye. So, but we'll use this as an example. So question number one. Let's just say someone wants to lose 50 pounds, release 50 pounds. Great. Awesome. First question you want to ask yourself, can I do this? Can I release 50 pounds? Can I release 50 pounds? And they have to ask themselves that, and they have to really sit with it. It's like, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can. I mean, look at these people over here. I've seen other people do it. I mean, why can't I? Can I do this? Well, yeah, I can do this, and so once you get a yes, and you actually say to yourself, yeah, I can do this, then you have to ask a second question. And the second question is, all right, well, if I do this, is it going to work? Right? Like, so if I start moving my body a bit more, if I start to educate myself a little bit on nutrition and how to fuel myself for weight release, will it work? Will I release some weight? I mean, when you ask yourself that, it's like, well, yeah. Okay. Yes. I can answer yes to that. Okay. So great. So we've got yes and yes. So here's the third question. Is it worth it? And this is where I challenge and I push back on people. I'm like, well, I want you to reframe this. Rather than saying, is it worth it? So is releasing 50 pounds worth it? Rather say, am I worth releasing 50 pounds? That is really where it becomes very powerful. Because now it's a question of value. It's a question of self-perception. Yeah. And how do you value yourself? And usually when I ask that third question to people, where I challenge them to ask themselves that, if they don't give me a hell yes, I am worth releasing 50 pounds or whatever that goal is, or that decision that you've made to change something. That's where we got to start working. Wherever the no's are coming up, we got to start working there.
Someone said most people are risk calculators instead of risk takers.
Yeah. Well, we're averse to pain, right? We are, and when we look at fear as creating emotional pain, fear and emotional pain, and fear of the unknown, fear of success. I mean, there's so many different types of fears that we can layer on, but at the end of the day, it's a lot to do with the unknown. And sorry, I was just going to say, there's another question you can ask as well. If you get yes, and yes to those three questions, is who can I surround myself with to support me on this change? And this could be mentors and coaches or communities. It's maybe taking educational programs. Like either way, it's like, who do you surround yourself with? Who are you associating with? And Jim Rohn says we're the net sum of the 5 closest people in our lives. Those 5 closest relationships. If you look at who you hang around with the most, you probably have similar perspectives and mindsets as those individuals. And so challenge yourself. If you're hanging out, and they've done studies on this where they've looked at a bunch of people that are carrying a lot of extra weight, and they look at their close association, they'll find that they're all within a certain amount of weight. And why is that? Well, there's a comfort zone there. There's a lifestyle pattern there that's being copied, right? And so how do you break out of this? Well, you got to figure it out, and like for myself, I dealt with social anxiety. It's a big reason why I learned to use alcohol, because I'd have a couple drinks and I become fun guy die. I become a completely different dude, and I could open up. I could have conversations. I could talk to the people I wanted to talk to. Right. And, and so that was what alcohol was for me. But then it also led to drugs and narcotic use. And it also led to me doing things that I'm not proud of doing, and especially when I started having my kids, and just, I was not being. I remember my wife one day threatening to leave me after just, I was very good at begging for permission rather than asking for forgiveness, right? Like it was, vice versa. I would beg for forgiveness rather than just ask for permission. And so I would often just do things because I'd justify that it was okay for me to do it. And either way, it was just really bad patterns and habits. And one day she just sat me down. She's like, Dai, are you being the type of man that you want to marry your daughters? Like, boom. Now there's a question for you, right? Like that. It was, I don't know why, like, I'm sure she must have asked me similar questions before, but it just never resonated. But that morning, I was like, whoa, I am not being that guy.
Right.
In fact, if a guy came to my home that was like me at that time, about 10 and a half years ago, I wouldn't have let him in the door.
Yeah.
I
Right.
would have said, there's no way you're even talking or looking at my daughters. No
Right.
way.
Right.
Yet that's who I was, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I realized I take alcohol out of the equation, I take the drugs away. Oh my goodness, I've got this thing that I've learned to cope with by using these things. I take away the crutches. I got to learn how to walk again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And for me, that involved looking at who my association was first and
Yeah.
foremost. And I was very grateful. I found an organization called Toastmasters. It was a big reason that I was able to make some of these shifts. Also,
Oh
the
yeah, I
CrossFit.
saw that on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, I love Toastmasters. It's nonprofit, super cheap.
Yeah.
It's the negative I have about it is that it's undervalued. People treat it as such, right? Like it's
Yeah.
if it was a $10,000 program, people would treat it very differently. It's all
Yeah.
volunteer based. Everybody that's there running those clubs globally, they're
Yeah.
volunteer.
Yeah.
But they supported me, they helped me, they taught me how to better communicate, how to
Yeah.
have a bit of confidence in sharing a message
Right.
and telling a story, being a better leader. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah.
so I learned how to literally live a life without alcohol. You know,
Yeah.
like it wasn't even it was a moot point because I made a commitment to my wife that day. I was like, I can prove you I don't need alcohol.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 1 year no drinking. I made a commitment to her and my
Right.
girls, especially for myself. I got to the 1 year mark and I was like, I've changed so much in this 1 year. What if I just continue to live this lifestyle? What will
Yeah.
happen then? And it's just this last 10 years, I've grown tremendously more than
Yeah.
I'd grown in the previous 30. You know, it's
Yeah.
just like
And see,
great. It's
and
crazy.
once you do that, once your perspective changes on its whole situation, all of a sudden your decisions just follow that. And I tell people, once you make a decision, I'm telling you, everything will come automatically. It's not something you'll think about. The drugs become like, well, I can't be this with this, so that's not going to work. I can't do that with the alcohol, like the type of person I want my daughters to be with. Well, I can't have alcohol in the, automatically you start doing this. And when I think of this purpose thing, I always kind of mentioned this story that I've told so many times, but I got to tell you. So when I was out snowboarding, my friends are much better than me. We were in the glades, in the woods. So they're maybe 10 feet apart, right? So it's really pretty close. So I'm going in there and I'm just like 1, 2, 3, almost a tree. I'm like, son of a, and then I got to get up, struggle, and it's tough in there, it's slow, it's deep. So I got to get up again. Then I got to go again. I'm like, all right, go. 1, 2, 3, tree, son of a damn, like what the? And my friends, and I'm going, what the hell? And then he finally stops and, sprays me, and I'm like, dude, how do you do this? Like, I'm tired, and it's because I keep fucking falling. Like, and so he just like
Into a tree.
he just goes, dude, stop looking at the trees. Look at the path between the trees. And I'm just like, that's it. That's your that's what you're gonna give me.
So true.
What have
So
I got
true.
to lose? What have I got to lose? I'm like, he's gone. I'm like, all right, guess I'll see them down there. So I get up again. And I'm like, all right, don't look at the trees, look at the path between the trees. Got it. I'm up. And it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 4 stop. I'm like, skirt. I'm like, what was that? Like, how did that happen? How the fuck did I just go through that? And I was going 1, 2, 3, stop. 1, 2, 3, stop. How the hell did I get through it? And that taught me a huge lesson on perspective. Nothing changed. I didn't get all of a sudden so much better just within seconds. The weather didn't change. I'm in the woods. There was no variables that changed other than my mindset on it. My perspective changed. And all I did was like, don't look at the trees, look at the path between the trees. And it's kind of like what you do. When you have that sense of purpose, all these obstacles become kind of just in your way, and you kind of just go around it. You don't even think about it like, oh, this annoying dude. You don't hang out with annoying people or negative people, not because you're like, I have to stop hanging out with this guy, and I got to stop hanging out with this guy. You just kind of go, they just disappear. They just disappear, and because that's what you do. And I like that you mentioned about the questions, that you ask questions. One thing that we've learned, and this is very recent, I go, that's the reason it doesn't work when you tell someone something. When I go, dude, Dai, you have to go to the gym. Like you're kind of overweight. The first thing you're gonna say is like, I know, yeah, but this. You'll come up with excuses when you're being told something. No one likes being told what to do, first of all. So that's already the negative. But when you ask a question and you say, something like, what what do you think you need to do so you could lose weight? Like, what do you think? And there's no room for excuses.
It forces them to answer.
You don't go, yeah, but you don't answer a question, yeah, but you don't come up with excuses. You would just kind of answer the question. So you just have to ask the right one.
Yeah.
If you ask like something that goes the other way, it's going to make them get stuck. But once you say that, all of a sudden they can't come up with an excuse. So why can't you, what do you need to do to lose 50, like you mentioned before? How do you think you can lose 50 pounds? Like, in a year? Like, how do you think? I don't know. I could take a walk. I could start like this, and then and they all just come naturally. The powerful thing with that is because you're empowering them with the power of decision. It's actually coming from them instead of you telling them what to do. Because almost all the time, so much better when it comes from you. And I learned that, when I'm like a really bad place, I was complaining to her like crazy. I mean, I was having a bad day, man. And I complained to her like crazy, and she motivated me. That should have worked, right? Everyone has that same mindset. It should have worked.
I did it wrong.
Why didn't it work? What it did, it actually reversed. I was feeling better when I was complaining to her. And then I was like, and then I was like, oh, it feels good. And then all of a sudden she goes, hey, you'll be all right. You're awesome. And I was just like, all of a sudden the feelings went right the fuck back. And I was like, why did that go back? Why am I pissed off again? This is weird because I was aware of it because of what we do for a living, right? I was very aware of it. And I was just like, babe, don't do that. Like, I was actually feeling good when I was like, getting rid of it, but like it brought me back. Like it's no good. And so what I learned and I'm like, you know what it is? When people motivate you too soon, it feels like, or it really feels like that you didn't listen to a word that I just said. I said, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. And you just went, you'll be all right. So it doesn't feel like I was heard. It doesn't feel like anything. I didn't get the release. And it went right back. And then on top of that, and I'm saying this because of the question thing, I realized that you have to ask the right question right after that. Whenever someone is really bad and they're really talking to me, I just say, wow, from your perspective, Dai, shit, that does suck. Like, man, drinking and shit, always on drugs, Jesus. Well, now what? Your wife's trying to divorce you? Now what? Because that means I listened to everything you said, like everything. Now it goes from you going, man, why does she have to be this? Why is this? It becomes, well, I don't know. I guess I gotta, all of a sudden solution mindset comes into play. Well, I guess I gotta fucking give up. I gotta stop that. I mean, it's not cool. It's not good for my daughter. That was a good question. Shit. Like, that was great because the way she asked it, it really just made you like, whoa, what am I doing? And it came from you. She didn't tell you. If she had said, you have to stop this, so that, what if, your daughters meet someone like you? It wouldn't have been the same because you didn't put yourself in it.
It's a different motivator.
You would have just been like, bah, 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 like, all right, it's begging time again, begging forgiveness time again, And it's funny. And a quote that we've, keeps kind of coming back to us, when people like, yeah, it's, they refer to it like the crossroads when I had enough. And I'm just like, well, there's a saying that enough is not an amount. It's a decision. Because it's been enough. Like, it was enough 2 years ago, 5 years ago. You're just saying it's enough now. All it is you finally made a decision now. You should have left that relationship a long time ago. You should have left that job so long ago when it was enough. It was day freaking 5. It was enough, but you stayed, and the same thing with relationships. So I like that you got that question out. And this, what's her name? The Mind Over Medicine. This lady, Lisa Rankin, she talks about we're actually social beings, and having a partner actually helps with dealing with stress responses. And because we're such social beings, and that's why it's so helpful when you go to AA meetings, have other people with you, because you get to kind of cater to that stuff, so it's really interesting. So yeah, so what do you got? Anything going on, coming up, things like that?
Well, for anybody that's interested, I wrote a book a number of years ago, and it's called the Whole Life Fitness Manifesto. But I'm not here to sell a book. I'd like to just invite people that if they like to maybe have some support, have a great community that they can plug into that can help with some of the things that we've been talking about today. It's a free community. The program is absolutely free. Like there's no hidden agenda here. It's just my way of giving back, because I don't like dollars and cents to get in the way of people making lifestyle changes. It just doesn't make sense to me. So join WLFM.com is a website where you can go and you can sign up for free. And for 28 days, I send you basically some prompts. Okay. And it really is paint by numbers. If you're coachable and you're ready to make some shifts, I'm going to teach you how to maximize 2% of your 24 hours for self-care. So 2% of your 2% is 30 minutes of your 24-hour day. So it's very, very little investment, but the return on that investment, it pays mass dividends, especially when you compound it over 28 days. And it consists of 15 minutes of movement with purpose. It's all body weight based. If you have enough room to put a towel down on the ground, you have enough room to do any of the workouts I'm going to give you. Plus, it's 5 minutes of mindful meditation and 10 minutes of concentrated, focused personal development. So this is to exercise that muscle between the ears. All right. The mind and the mindset. If you're not constantly putting good inputs in, the chance of creating good outputs goes down into the pooper. Okay. I was going to say in the toilet. I wasn't sure. I was trying to think, like, is there kids listening? Earmuffs. Okay. Either way, it's a very simple in design. And it's come through 25 years of being in the health and fitness space and working with thousands upon thousands of people as their coach and mentor. And it's just the most effective way I've been able to show people how to get started. Notice I'm saying get started.
Yeah.
Because it is a lifestyle. It's not a program that you start and then you stop. Even though I encourage you to do it for 28 days straight, it doesn't just stop at day 29. No, this is the least that you're worth. So remember that number 3 question I asked you. Am I worth it? Am I worth to make the changes? If you can answer yes to that, then yes, you're worth 30 minutes every day to invest in your own health and well-being, your self-care. And this is the best way to get the greatest return on that 30 minutes, in my opinion. And again, I'm biased. I've put this together, but I've seen it create such amazing results for people. So like I said, it's free. Please share that link out. People can use that. And if they have any questions, reach out to me on any of my social media, just Dai Manuel, and you'll find me. I run men's groups. It's called Mentorship Mondays. So we're doing them all on Zoom now. We've got one in the Eastern time zone, Pacific time zone, as well as one in Bali time zone. And we also got a guy that's starting one in Australia and someone starting one in Europe. So they're free to attend for men only. I'm sorry, but only men. But that's why it's called Mentorship Mondays. And it's just a wonderful group where men can go, and it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to share what your struggles are and to share your wins, what's going well for you, and have men look at one another, not judge one another, not feel intimidated, like looking at the guy that's sharing something right now and thinking, you're my competitor, I want to quash you. Like that's not what it's about. It's about creating a community of men that are there to support other men in being the best versions of themselves. So that's a passion project that I started with another guy in Bali, Nick Wood. He actually runs a great podcast. You guys got to connect. I'm gonna have to connect you with Nick. He's Life Athletics. athletics. It's about winning the game of life is his podcast. And
nice.
it's a lot of fun. And that's actually how I met him almost 3 years ago, was being interviewed on his podcast. So it's amazing to see how things happen when you meet great people through this type of medium. And so that's it. You know, I do a bunch of other stuff, and but I just tell people, let's just have a conversation. They reach out to me on any of my platforms and say, hey, Dai, how you doing?
Yeah.
That's all you got to say. I heard you on Thinking Out Loud. Great. Awesome. Thanks. Hey, what did you resonate with? How did you answer those questions I put out there? Like, I'm just a person. And, you know, like, I feel really cheesy saying that. I'm just some dude on the end of whatever
like
way
no one paid attention to me for the youngest part of my lives. I'm all about it.
Just talk to me. Like, talk to me, please. You know? And I just love having conversations.
Now.
Yeah. And my blog, which you have the web link there, there's over 1,500 articles, all geared to helping people with health and life. And so I always say, just, you know, it's a nice place to start your journey if you're looking for something to start to change your perspective, as you've been putting this in this conversation. So that's it. That's all.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff. So
that
is awesome though.
So thank you so much for joining us. And I hope people that are watching, you know, I hope they learn from this. And, you know, we're going to share this even after this live episode, we're going to share this video and stuff. So I hope everyone that's watching really learned a lot of things from Dai, and you felt inspired, and because that's what we're trying to do here. And that's what we're trying to do with Start Day One. Actually, I never even mentioned like what we're doing with the nonprofit. So as a nonprofit, what we actually do is try to raise money, because we have a more proactive approach, because a reactive one doesn't really work as well. It's just more effective. And so we're producing these videos. This is the kind of one of the things that we do to proactively get out there, reach out instead of waiting for them to reach out to us. But it's also because we have to duplicate what we do, right? Sending speakers out to schools, universities, rehab centers, corporate functions, things like that. I know those are things that you do now. And a lot of times, these venues just don't have the budget. And a lot of times they only call when a suicide actually happens. Then the school calls. So to us, like, well, what if we get rid of your excuse? Like, what if we paid Dai to go to your school? Like, is that cool? Like, we're really just trying to prevent suicide here. Like, I know people see suicide, so they go like, well, I'm not suicidal. Yeah, I know, but you're right here, man. Like, you're right here. Like, you hate this, your parents suck, they just got divorced and this. You may not be suicidal, but you're right here and you're going towards there. You know, so it's kind of like, it's not people think like suicide means like, oh, people that are like ready to go tomorrow. Like, no, man, like we're trying to prevent it. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do with that. And so we try to raise money to send speakers. And so, you know, we're going to keep in touch with you. And if you feel like there's a school or something around your area, well, we can help raise money. And then, you know, and we want to be able to reward you for saving lives. And that's why we want to do that and pay people to actually go, because it's the only way I'm going to duplicate what we've done. Like, we've realized every time we've done events and talked about inspirational things, we get an email afterwards saying, yo, thanks so much for inspiring me. Like, you've changed my life. And then, but the best ones are the ones that say, I was suicidal when I met you. Thanks, man. And I'm like, awesome. Like, I got so used to, you know, it kind of, you know, and I tell people like, oh, I got another one. Check this out. Like, you know, but it's nice. But I'm like, oh, I can't do this on my own. There's no way, you know, like the videos is just not the same as when you're in person, right?
So we're just trying to multiply ourselves and our efforts.
Yeah. So how do you scale? Well, can't do it by myself. So getting speakers like yourself, getting involved and things like that. So yeah, so that's what we do. So, you know, so awesome to connect with you. You really
likewise.
Are.
Thank you both very much. Love what you're doing.
Yeah, you're awesome, dude. So, but yeah, we'll see. We're probably gonna do another show with you, man. Let's see where you're at.
I'm game. We got lots more we can talk about. I'll tell you that. But even of just diving into some of the practical things that people can do every day, you know, it's amazing how simple it actually is. Like, we like to complicate things, and I have no idea why. Anyways, that's a whole nother side story, but we'll talk about that next time. All good.
Yeah, I'll definitely reconnect, give you reschedule you in.
Yeah, that would be great.
So everyone that's watched this, thank you so much for checking it out. Hope you support us. Startday1.org. You can visit Dai Manuel, check him out. And I guess that's it. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you again, Dai.
Thank you so
And
much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. It was
goodbye,
amazing. See everybody later.
Have a good night, everyone.
everyone.